So it's been a minute. It's been a little bit confusing in my life the last month or so. But I want to talk about how the algorithm has been changing for me. Everybody kind of knows a little bit about how the algorithm works these days. See, how this is working for our society is the algorithm pays attention to what you're paying attention to so it can show you more of it. Because that's the goal, is to capture our attention, to keep it as long as we can, and make as much revenue from advertising or whatever. So it's not that they are controlling us. It is that they are making it a lot more convenient for us to control ourselves for them. I don't mean that in this big cabalish, we're trying to control the world kind of thing. I mean that for them it's money. Like everything else in this world, for them it's money, power, and influence. For us, it's this ability to reconfirm on a continuing basis the fact that we already know what we need to know. I call it a fact because that seems to be how people embrace it. It doesn't make it a fact. It's almost like the word fact is being changed from something that meant something concrete to something that just reconfirms how we feel about what we see, think, or are exposed to. The cool thing about it being money-based, money-driven, is that my social media companies don't want to pigeonhole me into what I was. They'll allow me to become what I'm becoming, and they'll just keep reinforcing whatever I'm turning into. All right. It's important to understand that if it's being done for money, it is something that we as a society have agreed to. If there are problems with it, but we still like and use the product, if the model continues and is unchanged or unchallenged, it's something we want. If you don't want it, you would be doing something about it. Instead, what we do is either not understand the phenomenon or just kind of complain about it. Either way, this talk is about how my algorithm has been shifting. Before this last election, I did a talk. I was definitely not on Donald Trump's side, President Donald Trump's side. I was not on his side. I was definitely advocating against voting for him. And even convinced that to vote for him or not to vote at all, because that's my normal stance, is to not vote at all in this shit show of a government we've got, was to vote for him. I was definitely set in that camp. And I do believe that there are good reasons why I didn't trust him. I said in that talk that by winning in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, which completely surprised not only me, but when they were doing that victory speech and they're showing the audience, I wasn't the only one surprised, all right? There were plenty of people there that were just like, that happened. But when that happened in 2016, in my opinion, President Donald Trump, the man, became legendary. He did what he did how he did it, and he had won. In my book, that made him legendary. Even if he was nothing more than the con man that I thought him to be. If he was that con man I thought, then he would be one of the most legendary con men of all time. So even if everything bad I thought about him was true, he is still legendary. If he is not that con man, then he overcame that suspicion that was not just in me, and it's still present right now. But he overcame that and won. As far as I'm concerned, either way, no matter what the actual character of President Trump is, he became legendary in 2016. Unfortunately for him, when he lost in 2020, it's not so much that he lost that cost him legendary status. It's how the next 4 years played out. Now, I'm talking about before the election. My perspective before the election was that he handled that loss very poorly. Very poorly. For 4 years, in my opinion, that cost him his status as legendary. But my pre-election talk was, if he gets elected again, this man is legendary. That he's got it back. There's no effing way he can lose this shit. Oh, watch the swear. If he had won in 2024, he would regain that status, in my opinion, as legendary. And really, given the 4 years in between, I don't know how much more a person has to do to become legendary in our current civilization. To have survived all of that, to emerge victorious, and whether you like it or not, with a pretty solid mandate. This country went red. As far as I'm concerned, my post-election talk, I'm not changing or taking any of this stuff down. It's there. I said what I said. If he were to get elected again, he would become legendary. I would expect him to do legendary shit. All right. So that was at the election. My algorithm was still pretty much the same as it had always been. But after, I don't know if this is the point at which it happened, but this is the point I am designating in my internal narratizations as the changing point. That 2024 election, my pre-perspective and my post-perspective. See, before the election, somebody I respect accused, or not accused, but stated boldly that the reason I didn't like Trump was because I had fallen for a narrative. If somebody you respect says something like that, it does not matter how sure I am that I'm right. It doesn't matter, because that surety that I am right is a red flag. It's a vulnerability. I may be in a trap. If I dedicate myself to truth, to understanding what our purpose is, then an accusation like that from somebody you respect has to be given weight. It has to be taken seriously. It doesn't matter what you know to be the truth. If something like that comes up, if it's even possible that you have fallen for a narrative, it needs to be examined. And I don't care what narrative that is. Whether, in this example, whether it's because you're pro-Trump or you are anti-Trump. Both sides are exposed to narratives. In fact, the right is kind of more of a fun narrative, to be perfectly honest. I don't know, maybe you guys aren't aware of the phenomenon, which I find hard to believe, because if anybody has got like this market cornered on, well, maybe not, but I know there are trolls on the left, internet trolls. People who understand how to poke dragons and get them to freaking spit fire. But you seem to be doing a very bad job of understanding when you're being trolled. All these people have to do is say something or indicate that they're going to do something. you freak out and they do what they really want to do. See, in military parlance, this is called a blitzkrieg. You push forward far. Your objective's back here, but you push all the way up there. That way when you fall back, you just fall back to the objective. That was your goal. You got to keep your objective. Y'all are being trolled again and again and again, and this is exactly what they're doing. But it doesn't matter. Look, right now, one side has an awful lot of power. And we knew that was going to be the case. We knew after we saw the election results that there was an absolute shift and that one side was next to decimated. What do I mean by next to decimated? I mean they got their asses kicked, for one. For two, they got pushed back so hard that they are still reeling. They have, before in that pre-election talk I did, I talked about how the left had no plan before the election. The only plan they had was to attack the man, to hold the man up as an example of why you should vote for them. That was their entire strategy, to vibe their way into more power by using him as an example, which was a terrible fucking plan because it's the flash. It's what Shakespeare called full of sound and fury, without a plan, signifying nothing. Okay, so then you get your asses kicked. And there's, for the first time in my life, a dedicated effort put forward to uncover corruption and waste and fraud in our government. If you're the losing side who is just getting your ass kicked, you are a punching dummy. That's all you are right now. You are falling for all the trolls. You are still have no plan. And now there's all this fraud, and it's easy to put that fraud onto you. I don't know how much harder you can get your ass kicked before you wake up to the fact that your plan has failed. Not only has your plan failed, but because of the way in which you got your ass kicked, now everything that happens that is bad can be easily shown in this algorithmic light to be your fault. The problem isn't to get out of the line of fire. The problem is you need a fucking plan. And that script being flipped, remember all that energy that we're holding up this example of why you should vote for us because it's not this guy? Now that script is completely flipped on its head to you because he's actually doing what he said he was going to do and uncovering way more than we expected. Actually, I expect there's a lot more. I saw this economist, I think, or maybe a business guy, I don't know, talking about, there's a clip from CNN, and he was talking about how we should cut more, deeper, harder, and then build back the essentials. And the CNN reporter was like, don't do that. That's a terrifying idea, but I think it's probably the right way. See, what you have to realize is that I have thought this was bullshit all my life. All of my life I thought our votes don't matter because it's already pre-selected. Whoever is going to be president was already chosen long ago. That started to be challenged when Hillary lost. That legendary minute. That idea that everything was predetermined by those with power and money had to be challenged when Trump won the first time. President Trump won the first time. But it only sits, it's like empathy and humanity. It just sort of sits in the back of my consciousness and just simmers there like, well, it's possible that that assumption is false. That possibly voting actually works. Because in my life, I've only voted for a few times. I voted for Bush Jr. because, well, to be honest, I didn't like Gore. I was a kid. That was the first time I was even eligible to vote. I regretted voting for Bush Jr. after 9/11, but really, no, that could have been done way better. No, that could have been done way better. But if you're going to screw something up really bad, historically speaking, 9/11 was a good time to do it. Not a good time, not what I meant. Just, it seems like if you're looking back on it from history's perspective, it'd be like, well, it was a tough time. People are going to make mistakes. Seems like it's being dismissed too lightly, only because I don't want to talk about this subject. I voted for Bush Jr., and the next time I voted was for Barack Obama, which I did not regret all the way up until this algorithmic shift. And then I voted for Harris in 2024 because I was convinced that that was the right thing to do. From the uncovering of the fraud, it certainly seems like I was wrong. But at this point in our history, all of this fraud that's being uncovered is so easy to push off on the crazy left. They've been crazy for years. I remember when my union tried to contact me and get me to vote for Hillary. I was like, I don't trust Hillary, but I don't trust politicians. Was it specifically strong? I don't know, whatever. Either way, my argument back then was that the left was freaking crazy and the right were criminals. But now, from this perspective, today, the left is so much more crazy than they used to be. And that was enough reason for me not to vote for Hillary back then. And the crooks are everywhere. If you think, it's like that person I respected said I had fallen for a narrative. There is more than enough narrative out there for you to be falling for it on either side. But right now, it's easy to beat on the Democrats because they just have lost their way and they have no plan. They're kind of asking to get beat on. It's like they're already bloodied on the ground, but they're like, please hit me some more. I mean, maybe they kind of like it. I don't know. If they want to get out of it, they need a plan. I'll get back to the plan later. So it's possible that I had fallen for a narrative. Either way, the point of that narrative bit of this talk is that understanding that if you are in a narrative, it needs to be questioned. If you're ever going to learn, grow, or do any of this work, which is very important work to do, you need to question it. Whether that narrative is biblical, whether that narrative is CNN, Fox, ABC, NBC, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. All of it, if you are in it, needs to be open to criticism and examination. So what about this algorithmic shift? I'd like to give a couple of honorable mentions. I'm a construction worker. All day long, when I'm at my day job, I'm listening to audiobooks. And things like this are becoming more common nowadays. I remember years ago, and not even all that long ago, job sites could be competing radios, country, polka, rock. I mean, they'd just be going over each other. Now everybody's got one earbud in, and whatever augmented reality they have chosen to expose themselves to is what is playing out at the work site now. It's great for productivity. I don't know if it's like this in other areas, but in construction, it used to be like if I do a project, I'm working on a hospital project right now, that project may have taken 3 guys to do 20 years ago. And there are a lot of projects like this where what used to take X amount of guys can now be done with 1 guy. I don't think that's all on technology or scheduling. I think a lot of it has to do with guys that are, whether they know it or not, they are allowing themselves to focus and to flow while doing their job. And it just makes us more productive. But anyways, I've been an audiobook guy. One of my coworkers who I respect, he's good at his job. He seems to be intellectually curious. He seems to be introspective. He's doing work. The work I like to do, he is doing that in his life too. And he's recommended a few times when I listen to audiobooks, he tends to listen to podcasts. And if you are like us and you listen to podcasts, you probably listen to Joe Rogan. He's pretty popular, and for good reason. But anyways, I'll get to that in a minute. He had recommended Joe Rogan many times, and I'm not a podcast guy, so I didn't even know. I mean, I was peripherally aware that Joe Rogan existed up until a couple of months ago. But when my algorithm started to shift, that was probably one of the cornerstones to shifting it. I saw in Reels, because I still don't do podcasts, but I saw in Reels, I saw Joe Rogan. And I started to get familiar with his work. What do I think about this guy? On paper, just if I were to get a resume for Joe Rogan, he's not somebody that I would normally expose my curiosity to. He's definitely an alpha male. He's a good example of an alpha male, which is kind of hard to find, actually. For me, I've never really cared for alpha males all that much. They're just... The energy of an alpha male is a bit too assertive. I don't know. I don't know what the right word is. What it is about the alpha male that generally tends to kind of turn me off. But he seems to be a rare good example of an alpha male. He could kick your ass in a fight, but he can also ask you questions that are so deep into philosophy that it will boggle most people's minds. And he's doing it in order to fuel a conversation from the target he has, which is his guest. His gift is understanding what questions will drive that conversation forward. If I understand his methodology correct, he sits with guests in a room and he makes them as comfortable as they can, and he'll pop up YouTube videos or reels or whatever until he's found a subject that leads into the subjects he wants to talk with his guest about. I think that's probably one of the advantages to podcasts over general news and stuff like that, because attention is necessary for the growth of intellect. In order to have attention, you need to have something a little bit longer form. I know when I'm scrolling through reels and stuff like that, I get very frustrated by this short form. I prefer longer form, something with a bit more depth, where you take a little bit more time. It's not chopped up, it's not superficial. And he's good at the long form conversation. Not only good, but he's now interviewed a depth and breadth of guests that he's well versed in many scientific, theologic, philosophic, all of these different conversational flavors. He can keep up and generate more conversation. Now, what I thought about him prior to actually interacting and watching his work, what I thought about him was that he was just on the right. He was going to be one of those people. I probably put him in a categorization with like Rush Limbaugh, the people who talk on the right that I've listened to all my life. See, in the trades again, there was a lot of time spent with radios that had Rush Limbaugh on in the field, on job sites. Oh, and that dude annoyed the shit out of me. That guy was a tool. But that's probably the vein I put him in. So I never really went looking for him. You know what I mean? Before this algorithmic shift, my interest in him was very low. Since this algorithmic shift, I've gained definitely respect for his work. And not only respect for his work, but he's exposed me to people I did not know existed. And I want to give at least just one honorable mention to Dr. Jordan Peterson, who I was unaware of before, and much to my detriment. When you're doing this kind of work, when you've convinced yourself that you can actually help the world by using your mind, by just being a guy who takes his time to meditate on tough subjects, tough problems, who is willing to isolate himself from all distractions. When you're doing this work, ego is one of your biggest challenges. Trying to help without getting a big head about helping. My brother posted something the other day about arrogance and humility. And one of the problems with really working on humility is that you can get proud of your humility. Ego is a tricky challenge. And this is a guy, Dr. Jordan Peterson, who understands that intimately, who struggles with that, because he's aware of it and he has a specific destination in mind for his mind. He knows who he wants to be. He's aware that there are pitfalls and traps because he's seen them in his practice for a lot of years. He understands the struggle. He does this work and he communicates it well. Brilliant mind. There are other ones. There are so many other guests that I'd never even heard of before, that I was not exposed to before, that I really have Joe Rogan to thank for. And Dr. Jordan Peterson is definitely one of them. All right. So, my algorithmic shift. Where do I stand today? Given what's been exposed and what is continuously being exposed, from what I can tell, Elon Musk calls himself tech support. All right, I'm going to have to talk about this one too. Elon Musk, for a lot of years, in my opinion, for the perspective I had of the man, was that he wanted to help. He was he was definitely gifted, talented, and smart, but he was a bit handicapped in that he didn't have what it is that seems to be the stamp of success in our world. Like, if you're successful in this world, you tend to be a certain way. He wasn't that certain way, and for a lot of us, that gave us more hope that he was actually here to help. And when he switched to the right, I remember all of my algorithm was, to sum up, we wished that they had just been honest in the beginning, that they had just said, look, we're here to make money and we're going to do whatever it is that is profitable. His switch, from my algorithmic perspective, looked like profiteering. But my algorithm has changed. What do I expect from somebody who is just out for themselves? What are the signs, the characteristics I look for in somebody that is just out for themselves? They're trying to trick you into a situation that makes them more powerful, more profitable. I don't see signs of that in him. What I see in him and President Trump are signs of fatigue. These boys need a nap. But I think I am back in the camp that says that says he's actually trying to help. Do I, you know what? Whatever my work is, do I have suggestions into how you could do it better? Yes, I do. But it's his life. This guy is filthy rich. This guy already has all the power he wants. This guy can do whatever he wants. Get anybody pregnant and just set him up in a luxury suite. I don't. As a guy goes in this society, this dude could do anything that I would want to do. And he's choosing to spend his time as tech support for our failing government. And you know, when he calls himself tech support, he's not in this perfect setting, this stage or whatever. He doesn't go that extra mile to pretty everything up, because if anybody can afford to, he could, like my YouTube presentation right here, very rough. There's no refinement to it. There's no refinement to me. I mean, look at me. I'm a friggin' mess. It's just my mind that I'm trying to communicate to you. I don't want to distract you. I don't want to convince you. I don't want to... And he seems to be very much like that, even though he could afford to do absolutely anything he wants to do. I don't see signs that they're out to get us. I don't see signs that they're trying to take advantage of us. In fact, I see signs of sacrifice. That they're, at least in Elon's case, he is taking hits to do something he believes in. Whether you agree with him or not, that's what I see happening. Let me give you one possible example for why you should listen to that. This talk is algorithmic shift. We all have our own algorithms. What do you think the percentage is of people with solid intelligence who are aware of the algorithms and awake to it in such a way that they're constantly on guard to find out if they are falling for a narrative? I was convinced I had not fallen for a narrative, but it had to be taken. It was an accusation that had to be taken seriously. And I am now doing a talk entitled Algorithmic Shift. We are all in a narrative. If you take anything away from this, it is that you need to be on guard. If you are doing this work, the most important part of the work after deciding to do it is that you are aware of all the ways in which you can be trapped. When you're early in the work, identifying traps is how you correct issues in your life, in your mind. Once you've learned the tool of correcting and saving yourself from these traps, if you don't go forward vigilant for other traps that you may fall into or other traps you may have been in, because every time you eliminate one of these traps, you open yourself up to more growth. You need to question your own private narratization. It needs to be open to critical thinking and scrutiny. As an overview, see, this is me working my side work from the philosophical and intellectual perspective. This is the work I've chosen to do. When I do my side work at play, I think about terraforming our planet. And when I dream, to be more specific, I dream of terraforming the North American continent, because that's where I live. It's the geography I'm most familiar with, sadly speaking. Do I think that if the left had won, because before this election, I was very worried that one side would have all the power. And that is exactly what happened. One side had all the power. Do I think that the left, if they had ended up with all the power, could have in any way done the plans I have for terraforming this world? And I think the answer to that is no. Even before this, my talk before the election was they didn't have a plan. They weren't even really considering it seriously. I mean, everything they did was just to sort of appease and, from what we now know, keep the taps flowing. They weren't focused on the problems. They were focused on keeping what they had and getting more, which is, to be fair, exactly what I thought politics was my whole life. The difference is, it seems that at this particular moment in history, it's being challenged. It's being shown in the light. Before the election, I was certain that the right could never enact my plan. But I was open to the idea, when I dream, of being able to do the plan with the right. You don't have hope, but you still have to work in that environment. So you still have to dream. You still have to envision this future. If the right had won, which they did, I had to envision this future with them. And one of the first things, see, this is totally trolling. I'm sure that it was trolling, but I could be wrong. One of the first things President Trump did, was that Greenland crap. I could have swore it was a trolling thing, but this one affected me because I dream of terraforming the North American continent. And when you look at the North American continent, I'm telling you, Greenland's important. Greenland and Canada and Mexico, along with the United States, are very important players when it would come to terraforming the North American continent. And I never heard any politician say anything like, we're going to take over Greenland. And then as it went forward, I'm sure it was trolling, but as it went forward, there was actually signs that might actually be a thing that could happen. For the large or the semi-large scale of my dreams of terraforming this planet, that would be huge. To actually get Greenland and Canada and Mexico working with us to terraform all of that, to make things better for everybody. Man, no, the left couldn't have done my plan. They don't even have a plan. They don't even fully understand the problem. But one of the first things out of the gate was the man I was certain would have been bad for us saying something that was absolutely perfect for my plan. I had no faith that the right could do my plan. And I know neither side's going to do my plan. But I have to dream in the environment I live in. So, like right out of the gate, Greenland. I'm like, I was surprised. So my algorithm has shifted. I'm still watchful. But I have a lot more hope with what's going on than I did before. I did not expect to have hope a few months into President Trump's term. I didn't expect that. I thought it was all going to be terrible. But jobs are up, stock market's doing good, I'm working. There's less of this sex talk. See, the left, your craziness is so human. So human. And it's also so squeaky wheel. It's like whoever makes the most noise gets the most attention. And our planet is barely making noise. Here's how little noise our planet is making. It will allow us to kill ourselves and just go on spinning. The poles will reverse. There'll be ice here. There'll be ice there. It doesn't care about that. It certainly doesn't care about its offspring being transgender. It doesn't have offspring. It's not the squeakiest wheel. No matter how many hurricanes or earthquakes or fires there are, I mean, that's all noise. But most of it's just our noise. The fires in California, those specific fires, that specific region, it's a recurring phenomenon. There's supposed to be a lake there. The geography is such that there should be a lake there. There would be less fires if the lake was there. But all this nonsense about sex changes and transgenders. Look, in my life, I have known there are transgender human beings. I'm telling you, it is not at the rate that is attached to the amount of attention it's getting. The fact that we give it so much attention, it almost feels like a misdirection. Life could be improved for everybody. But instead we focus on these little distractions. And we get our algorithm tailor-made to us around these distractions we care the most about. You need to question your own narratives. You need to question them. If you're not really doing this work. Maybe you were doing this work, you found the position you were comfortable with, and you decided to stay there. If you're not questioning it, you're not doing this work. And I highly recommend that you do this work. Thank you.